What if Peter Parker remembered every possible future after No Way Home? At the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, Peter Parker makes the ultimate sacrifice. He asks Doctor Strange to cast a spell that makes the entire world forget who Peter Parker is. MJ forgets him, Ned forgets him, Happy forgets him. Peter is left completely alone, moving into a small apartment and preparing to start a new life from scratch. But what if the spell didn't work exactly as intended? What if, during the brief moment when the multiverse was tearing itself apart, Peter's mind was exposed to countless alternate realities? What if, instead of simply keeping his own memories, he woke up remembering thousands of possible futures that never happened? A few weeks after moving into his apartment, Peter begins having strange dreams. At first, he dismisses them as nightmares brought on by stress and loneliness. However, the dreams become increasingly vivid. He sees himself losing battles he originally won. He sees versions of himself making different choices. He sees timelines where Mysterio succeeds, where the Green Goblin kills MJ, where Doctor Strange fails to contain the multiverse, and even timelines where Peter eventually gives up on being Spider-Man entirely. The memories feel real because, in a way, they are. During the collapse of the multiverse, Peter briefly experienced countless alternate versions of reality. The spell erased him from everyone's memory, but it accidentally left behind fragments of those futures inside his mind. At first, Peter believes he is losing his sanity. He tries to ignore the visions and focus on his new life. He studies for his GED, works odd jobs, and continues protecting New York as Spider-Man. But then something unusual starts happening. His spider sense begins evolving. Instead of simply warning him seconds before danger appears, it starts showing him flashes of events before they happen. He sees a robbery before the criminals arrive. He sees a car accident minutes before it occurs. He sees a building fire before the first spark is ever lit. At first, the visions are brief and confusing, but as time passes, they become clearer. To the people of New York, Spider-Man suddenly seems impossible to predict. Some believe he can read minds. Others think he has developed new powers. No matter what people think, one thing becomes obvious. Spider-Man has never been more effective. For months, Peter quietly becomes the most efficient hero New York has ever seen. Crime rates drop, lives are saved. People begin talking about Spider-Man as if he is everywhere at once. Yet, despite all the success, Peter is miserable. The problem is that every time he saves someone, he also sees the futures where he failed. Every rescue comes with visions of alternate outcomes. He sees the people who could have died, the tragedies that almost happened, the disasters that were only seconds away. Slowly, the weight of all those possibilities begins crushing him. Then one day, Peter experiences a vision that terrifies him more than anything else. He sees MJ. At first, it seems like a normal glimpse into the future, but then he realizes what he's witnessing. In this future, MJ dies. The vision doesn't tell him when it happens. It could be years away. It could be decades, but the possibility exists, and Peter cannot stop thinking about it. Without telling her, he begins watching over MJ from a distance. Whenever she walks home, Spider-Man is nearby. Whenever she enters a crowded area, Peter quietly scans the surroundings for threats. Whenever danger appears, he removes it before it can get close. At first, he convinces himself that he's protecting her, but over time, he realizes the truth. He isn't protecting her anymore. He's controlling her life. MJ has no idea that every major decision she makes is being monitored by someone who believes he knows her future. Peter starts manipulating events to keep her safe. And for the first time, Peter begins to understand how dangerous his new abilities really are. The more futures he sees, the harder it becomes to allow people to make their own choices. Every decision appears connected to countless possible consequences. Every friendship becomes a risk. Every relationship becomes a potential tragedy waiting to happen. As the years pass, Peter grows increasingly isolated. He stops forming close friendships. He avoids relationships entirely. He keeps everyone at a distance because every emotional connection creates more futures he might eventually lose. Then comes the vision that changes everything. One night, Peter sees New York City in ruins. Buildings are destroyed, streets are empty, and people are terrified. For months, he investigates the cause. He searches for villains. He looks for alien invasions. He hunts for signs of multiversal threats. But eventually, he discovers something shocking. The person responsible for the disaster is not a villain. It's him. In that future, Peter became so obsessed with preventing tragedies that he slowly transformed into something else. He began deciding which futures people were allowed to have. He controlled events before they happened. He removed uncertainty from people's lives. The city became safer than ever, but it was no longer free. People still made choices, but only the choices Peter allowed them to make. Every major event was secretly influenced by Spider-Man's visions. For the first time, Peter understands what the future has been trying to tell him. The visions were never a gift. gift. They were a warning, not about villains, not about disasters, about himself. Peter realizes that every step he's taken has brought him closer to becoming the very future he fears. Eventually, he remembers the lesson Aunt May tried to teach him. With great power comes great responsibility. Not control, responsibility. There is a difference. For the first time since gaining his visions, Peter stops trying to predict every outcome. He stops searching for every possible tragedy. He accepts that some things are beyond his control. He continues being Spider-Man. He still helps people. He still saves lives, but he no longer tries to dictate the future. Years later, Peter sees MJ walking through New York. He still remembers the vision of her death. He still knows the possibility exists somewhere among countless futures. But this time, he lets her walk away because he finally understands that life is not about controlling every outcome. It's about allowing people the freedom to live their own stories. As Spider-Man swings through the city one more time, he realizes something important. The hardest lesson he ever learned wasn't how to save the world. It was learning that he couldn't save everyone.